Hi, everyone. Hi, Rocky Kids. Hi, friends. Hi, family. Hi, little chickadees. I've got another story for you on this wonderful Sunday, the end of August. This is our last Sunday in August. Can you even believe it? Well, as you can see, I'm sitting outside and there's no ash falling on me. I can look up and see blue skies and white clouds. And while it's not 100% back to normal, it sure is so much better. So, before I get started on my lesson, I just want to give a really big shout out to, well, first of all, God for the rains that He sent us. We could sure use some more, but we are so thankful for what we got. And of course, a shout out to the brave firemen and all the emergency personnel that have been working the Cameron fire. We just cannot thank you enough for protecting our property and our homes. Estes Park was never really in any danger, but we are just so thankful that none of the homes down in the Poudre Canyon were lost. So that aside, now I'll get started with today's story. And today we're going to study about Paul again. Paul was one of the greatest missionaries in the Bible, one of the greatest missionaries of all time. And if you remember, when we first met Paul, his name was Saul, and he did not believe in Jesus. He did not like people who believed in Jesus. He didn't want anything to do with it. And then by a miracle from God, he learned about Jesus and he became one of the greatest Jesus fans of all times. Paul went all over the world teaching others about Jesus, and consequently, that got him in a lot of trouble. It seemed like Paul was always in jail or going to jail or getting beaten or robbed or whatever because he was preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. Well, today we're going to learn about Paul as he was about to be shipped off to Rome to stand trial for bad things he had done preaching the gospel, and he was going to stand trial before Caesar. So our story starts. Well, first let me back up and just say, as you remember, back then they did not have airplanes, they didn't have cars, they didn't have buses or trains, so all their travel had to be done by sea on a boat. So this is where our story picks up. So Paul and some other prisoners were about to get on this boat, and as you can see, their hands are tied up in ropes and they have people guarding them. And then this is a Roman soldier who's basically going to be in charge of them for a while. So they get on this boat, and then the next thing you know, they have stopped at one of the ports, and then the Roman soldier decides to put them on this Egyptian vessel that was headed for Italy. So we think this is probably what the boat looked like. It was quite a large sailboat. And they had not been out at sea very long when a big storm came up with very high winds, and you can see that the sea is just tossing and turning, and you can see the guys looking overboard, how afraid they must be, and water crashing over the sides of the boat into the boat. Well, Paul goes to talk to the captain of the ship and say, look, if we continue on with these rough seas, we are surely going to be shipwrecked, and we're going to lose all the cargo, and all the people on board are going to die. Now, the story tells us that there were probably almost 250 people on board. And so that was a lot of lives to use. They were carrying all kinds of cargo, flour and food and hay and wheat and things that were going to Italy. So this big storm comes up, and as you can see, the seas are tossing and turning. So these guys decide that maybe they better throw some things overboard. They even throw some of the equipment from the boat overboard. Well, that they had been out at sea for probably 2 weeks, and the the storms just would not quit. So I'm sure the guys must have been seasick, don't you think, tossing and turning in that boat? Well, Paul went to bed one night and an angel appeared to him and said, Paul, I know this is a tough time, but I want you to know that God is going to take care of you. So don't be afraid. Be courageous and strong for these other guys because no one is going to die. So don't be afraid. Put your faith in God. That's what an angel told Paul. So the seas continued to be rough and toss and turn the boat. And then finally one day it calmed down a little bit. And so Paul decided that he and the other guys really needed to eat so they could keep their strength up for this long journey. Well, as you know, the best thing we can do before we eat is to give thanks to God for the food that we have and for all our blessings. And so here is Paul doing that right there in that picture. So they keep sailing along, and all of a sudden they see this over here. They see a bay, and now a bay is a smaller inlet of water. It's not out in the big sea, but it's a smaller inlet, and that's where the water really calms down. So Paul and these other guys kept thinking, if we can just get to that bay, we're going to be okay. So they started going that way, and then all of a sudden they hit something, and the boat was wrecked. And so they started telling people to jump off and swim to shore because they had gotten really close to shore by that time. Now, if they could swim, they were swimming, but some of them couldn't even swim. And don't you know they must have been scared? So they were grabbing planks off the boat to hang on to, sort of like a life preserver. Well, in the end, they made it to shore. And just as God, through that angel, had promised, everyone was saved. No one died. And so that's our main point for today, and that will be our memory verse for this week. And that's going to be, take courage, do not be afraid. Now, there are a lot of times in our life, even as children, that we are afraid. Sometimes we might be afraid of a storm here, or we might be afraid of going to the dentist or the doctor. There's all kinds of things that young children can be afraid of, but you know what? God's going to take care of you. Just like God will take care of your parents and everybody that you know, if you will just put your faith in God and believe in Him, trust Him. So I want you to remember this week, do not be afraid. Trust God and be courageous in all that you do. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this fun lesson about Paul. He just is in the Bible, particularly in the book of Acts, and that's where this story comes from. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the lesson. I hope you have a great week. For those of you who are watching, perhaps you can make it over to Sunday school by 10:30. We'll be meeting outside as we always do. Most importantly, remember that I love you and I miss you. So take care, guys. Mwah. Bye.